It's 2-in-1 update time. Enough of y'all have gotten your hands on the 2-in-1 and ran it, and I've been reading those comments. So let's discuss the current state of the 2-in-1. All right, so there's a few things I'd like to cover today on the 2-in-1. So the first batch, the waterproofing wasn't quite submergible. And as I've discussed before, I want to make these serviceable. So I'll show you why it's a little more difficult than just potting the rear end in epoxy. But because of the waterproofing, or the difficulty in waterproofing, we're kind of doing it the hard way. If something is to go wrong on here, I want to be able to replace the motor speed controller or any of the wires. And if we take off the back end, you can see that there's our PCB. And the conformal that was applied wasn't quite thick enough. So when you submerge it, it can glitch. It's not all of them, but there's a few of them that have glitched out. When you dry them out, they work again. So you can either send them in for better waterproofing, we can either trade them out, or you can just run it and try to break it, and then we'll give you a warranty when we get the next batch in. But the next batch has been tested underwater for extended periods of time. We have increased our waterproofing ability, but we've been able to also keep the serviceability. So as you can see on this, our phase wires are right there out in the open, and then all of our wires connecting the power and our radio and all the accessories are also available. So you can switch them out. So if you cut a wire or something like that, you can always replace it. The other thing with the wiring, while I'm speaking about the wiring, is that we are going to extend this power wire, basically double it. I believe it's 4 inches now. We're going to go to 8 inches. It's easier to shorten than it is to lengthen a wire. And I get that there are a few rigs, not many, but there's a few rigs where this wasn't quite long enough. We are keeping the RX wire the same length and our JST the same length, but we're going to extend that out. And if you want something like a plug change or anything, if you're buying it directly from Holmes Hobbies, we could also change that wire length too. But something to keep in mind. So I did also make a change on the waterproofing for the case. Not really a concern of y'all, but it'll make our assembly just a little bit cleaner. But it's an interior case change. Y'all won't be able to see anything on the outside, but a little running design change to make it more waterproof. The other concern that we have heard from a few customers is that it doesn't have enough drag brake. And this is either one of two causes. One is you are used to an active hold and you want more than just a drag brake, or the other one is that you're using the auxiliary wire and you're not quite getting full drag brake, even though you have, your radio set all the way to one side or the other. So on the case where it's your radio, what we're finding is that some RTR radios, in particular Spectrum ones, aren't giving us the full throw for whatever reason, and on the RTR radio you can't change your endpoints. So what we're doing is on the next firmware change, we're going to change that endpoint for this little yellow wire so that even with an RTR radio you should be able to get your full drag on one side and then your full bash on the other side. We're also going to be implementing a hold brake feature that is tunable on our next firmware upgrade for these, and that will give you the ability to hold harder than drag brake will hold. And this will create extra heat since it's an active hold. It's kind of like a dumb feature when you're using a sensorless motor like this, and it will be something where you have to tune for the heat. So just as an aside and a heads up on that, we will have a firmware update that'll accomplish that for you, but it will give you a little bit more heat. So keep that in mind. On the subject of firmware updates, if you want to update to Escape 32 and get the hold feature now, and you want to be able to tune in the way that Escape 32 allows you to, we did not have write protection on this, and they do have a target for Holmes Hobbies. I believe it's just called Holmes Hobbies 1 or something like that, and that would work on our Crawlmaster V3. It's going to be labeled 3.2 on the back specifically, and it should work on this because they use the same pinout for the IC. I have not used it. I cannot exactly recommend it, and I can't tell you what a good tune is going to be for this, but if you're into that program, you should be aware that you can do that. Let's see, was there anything else we wanted to cover? There was the brake on there, the hold brake. There was our waterproofing, and then otherwise a little bit more heat. Now, some of these are coming from folks that are used to a Fusion, in particular, the hold, and also the amount of heat that this can generate. So we don't limit the amps really, at least not in a fashion where it's going to limit your power. And being a smaller package in pretty much all directions, it's going to produce more heat for the unit size. And that means that your case is going to run hotter. And you can run these 160 Fahrenheit on the case, no problems at all. And that's really hot, that's scalding. 140 is where it really starts to hurt your hand and can burn you. So 160 Fahrenheit, you may think, wow, like this is problematic, but you can just keep running it at that temperature if that's the gearing and the rig weight and everything that you're used to. But when you have a velocity loop on the low end, something that you should be cautious of is whether or not you have binding in your drivetrain, because it will mask the binding in the drivetrain. One way to see whether or not you do is to put it into bashing mode. And if your rig goes row, 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 or it makes a similar sort of noise, you can see some lurching as you're going, that means you probably do have binding in your drivetrain. Or if it takes a whole lot of throttle to get it going and it's very unsmooth, that's another indicator you have binding in your drivetrain. The velocity loop will hide that, something like a Fusion will hide that, and you just may not be aware of it. So keep that in mind. If you're having heat problems on these, it's a very few people that are, but some people are. It might be your rig weight. It might be your driving style. Maybe you're just using all the extra power and you're really getting on it a lot. Or you may have some binding in your drivetrain. So keep an eye on that. And I do believe that covers it. So we'll be making some running changes to the motor itself to improve our waterproofing, make it a little bit easier for you to plug it into pretty much any sort of rig that you want to with the extended wire there. We'll be changing our drag brake endpoint so that it is more compatible with RTR radios so you can get the use of that Spectrum third channel. And otherwise, just trying to make things as high quality as we can. So if you have any comments or questions about this, please do leave them down below. If you've had some running experience with it, sure would like to hear about it as well. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.